We've been asked quite a few times to share a recipe for traditional Irish soda bread.
You're steamy hot.
Oh, steamy hot.
Around our area, this is also known as just brown bread. It's a bread that is very easy and takes very little time to make because it's made with bread soda instead of baker's yeast. So if you run out of bread an hour before lunch, this is the recipe you want. Soda bread became very popular in Ireland from the mid-1800s onwards, when bread soda became widely available in shops because it was more suited to bake over the traditional Irish kitchen fireplace, usually in a big cast iron pot called bastable. Proper ovens weren't really common in traditional Irish country homes. We are lucky to have an electric oven in our kitchen. And before I start the recipe, I preheat the oven to 190 degrees Celsius. There are only a few basic ingredients: a mixture of brown and white wheat flour and a raising agent other than yeast. I use a mixture of baking soda and baking powder. And then you also need buttermilk to activate the baking soda. I use a cup to measure out ingredients. Couldn't be simpler. The bread can be baked as a round loaf on a baking tray or in a bread tin to make a more angular loaf. I butter them both, especially the corners in the bread tin need buttering or the loaf will stick. First, I measure out the flour, 4 cups each of brown and white flour. Then I add 4 teaspoons of baking powder and 2 teaspoons of baking soda. In the olden days, only baking soda was used for Irish soda bread. I like using baking powder as well, as it helps the bread to rise more once in the oven. I mix these together. Then I add the buttermilk. Buttermilk is the liquid that separates from the fat when making butter. It was a plentiful byproduct in traditional Irish farmhouse butter making. Nowadays, it often is produced from fresh pasteurised milk by adding lactic acid bacteria and can be bought in most shops in the dairy section. I use my hands to mix everything into a firm dough, adding a bit more buttermilk if necessary. I knead the dough for some time, but not too long. The baking soda reacts instantly with the acid in the buttermilk, producing CO2, which causes the dough to expand. You don't want to burst all those CO2 bubbles by over-kneading, and you want to get the dough into the oven quickly. I cut the dough into 2 pieces. One goes into the bread tin. I sprinkle some flour into it and swish it around a bit before I put the dough in. And I cut the top of the bread with a knife. That makes it easier for the bread to expand in the oven. Similar procedure with the other piece of dough, only that I shape it into a flattened ball. The bread goes into the hot oven for about 30 minutes. No proving needed. You know it's ready when you get a hollow sound when you tap its bottom and sides.
This one. Good as well. Okay, done.
Happy baking to you all.